You're listening to the Confidence Coach Podcast, episode 58. We all have the fear of not being good enough. All right, here we go. I want to be real with you today. Not every day is rainbows and kitty cats. And even though a lot of us make forward momentum in our personal life and our business life, there's always that fear. There's always a fear that goes on in our heads. And sometimes that fear shifts. Sometimes it's different one day than the next. But the biggest recurring fear that I have personally experienced, and I know I am not alone on this, is the fear of not being good enough, or the fear of what other people think, that fear of judgment, right? And so these are two really big things that I think come up for a lot of people, and they slow a lot of people down from reaching their goals or even thinking bigger goals for themselves. And so I want to shift that from fear to love. I know that probably sounds like cliche, or I don't even know, it probably just sounds icky to some people. I used to cringe at the word love. Like if you said, "Oh, Sausha, I love you," or you try to like give me a hug, or God, I just never used the word love. It just really creeped me out. But I think it's because I lacked such self-love that for me to even think about saying that I loved something else was just hard. And I don't think that I heard it a lot growing up. You know, I did like that, "Oh, Sausha, I love you," side hug thing. But that was really it. I mean, we just were never really a loving family like that. And not that like there wasn't love in the house, guys, like that's not what I mean. But you know, like you always see like people like hugging and kissing and, you know, "I love you" and things like that. Like that just didn't go on in my household. And so as an adult, it was really hard for me to figure out what self-love looked like, what self-worth looked like, because I always had that fear that like I was never doing the right thing, or I was never going to be good enough no matter how hard I tried. Like I was always going to fail, or people were going to tell me how bad I sucked. And these were just thoughts that like kept going through my head no matter how hard I tried to overcome them, you know? And so getting like an outside perspective on self-love and really starting to do some self-love work made me get to a point in my life where I can say, "Hey, Sausha, I love you," and not want to punch myself in the face. Because I did. Every time I looked in the mirror and I was like, "Oh, you're disgusting. Like, who would ever want to marry you? Who would ever want to date you? Like, who would ever want to like buy things from you or be your friend? Like, no wonder everybody hates you." Like, and you guys, you may think I'm crazy. I don't know. Sometimes when I tell people this, they're like, "Oh, whatever. You didn't think that stuff." And they like minimize my negative self-talk, which in itself is a self-worth issue. You're like, "I'm trying to express to you how I really feel," and then you're minimizing my feelings. So that in itself, to me, is like a you know, like, why don't you just shit on me kind of thing. So I had to be very cautious on who I even told these things to. So over the years, I built this really hard shell on the outside. You know, really I was like I was like a castle, you know, I was just like stone on the outside, like you weren't breaking in this. And I did, you know, I played tough guy on the outside all the time. And what I thought was confidence back then was really just me putting up a wall, putting up a block. It was all fake, right? On the inside, I didn't feel confident, but on the outside I did. And that's why I think it's so funny now, because there's some people in my life that are like, "Oh, Sausha, I always thought you were the confident one." And I just have to laugh, because there's a difference between being loud and being confident, or being firm and being confident, or being rude and being confident. And so I spoke my mind coming from a fear-based mindset, right? Like, I don't give a shit what people think of me. They can all just F off. And now it's, I don't care what people think of me. I hope the best for them, right? Like, I mean, I still sometimes tell people to F off, but like in a loving way, like, you have work to do, sister. But it took a while to get to that place. And I had to start with a lot of inner work. And you guys, I talk about inner work a lot. You know, there's even like mirror work. A lot of the women that I work with, I'm like, go stand in front of the mirror and just repeat, I love you, and then say your name. And some of them are just like, I can't. And I'm like, you can. It's just super, super uncomfortable. And it will continue to be uncomfortable the longer you freaking resist it. So run straight towards that discomfort. My challenge for you today is to go stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you, with your name behind it. Say it, I'm not kidding you, 12, 15, 20, 30 times a day if you need to. Keep saying it. Look yourself in the eye until you believe it. And it will not happen overnight, you guys. It will not happen overnight. Consistency is key, and every day you got to show up and take action. And this is where you will start to feel that inner confidence, that inner self-worth, and that will radiate outward, right? And then you will start to not have so much fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being able to put your best self out there. And so that's just one tip that I have for you. Another thing is to get quiet. You know, I talk about meditation a lot, and when I first started meditation a few years ago, I thought it was like totally hippie woo-woo. I thought you had to be like some sort of religion. You had to like practice like these chants and like, I don't know, light certain candles and shit. And turns out meditation is just learning how to channel your thoughts, getting quiet with yourself, and really focusing on what you want, how you want to feel, and how you are in control of what your reality is, right? And so a lot of times my meditation will just be learning how to shut off that monkey mind, you know, that mind, that part of your brain that's like, I'm not good enough. I have a million things to do. I'm a shitty mom. The dogs need fed. The horses need fed. The car needs clean. You know, that constant like channel of thoughts, that train of thoughts. It's learning how to just silence that. And again, it won't happen overnight. You know, practice makes progress, I'm going to say, because there's no such thing as perfect, no matter how hard we try. And when you start to get quiet with yourself, the things that you really want, the things that really matter, and that inner love starts to radiate not only through you, but to you, from you, and around you. And what I mean is by when you 100% love yourself, or close to 100%, when you start to love yourself so much, you will be able to just silence those inner demons, the ones that tell you all of the shitty things, and you'll be able to silence those people around you that tell you those shitty things. And really, when people around you tell you really terrible things, like when I was like, I'm going to be a business owner, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to help people live their best freaking life, I got shamed a lot, you guys, like a lot. And it was because everybody else's fear was being projected onto me, right? Like their fear of thinking outside the box started to come up, and they're like, you can't do that. That's not a real thing, you know? And so I had to take a step back and be like, is this real? And the answer is no. Like, people do these things. People do these things all the time. And just because you or, you know, somebody close to you can't wrap their mind around it does not mean that you can't do it. Their limiting beliefs are their limiting beliefs, not yours. And so don't base your life, your goals, your future on somebody else's fear of living their best life, right? And so I always have to just think of it from a higher perspective. And what I mean is, and this might sound weird, but I think of my life as a movie, and I'm like watching a movie. So if I were watching like a conversation between me and somebody else shaming me for like my big dream, if I was an outside an outsider watching in, I would be like, Sausha, tell that person to shut up. Like, you go live your life, girlfriend. Like, you do the things that you want to do. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in our own head that we just give up. We're scared. We're scared. And that's what keeps us small. And the only way to overcome that fear is to face it head on. Like, you guys, I say all the time, like, punch that fear in the face. Like, invite it in, give it some coffee. And then when it starts getting mouthy with you, you say, listen up, fear. I'm trying to be nice to you right now. But if you don't start acting the way I want you to, I'm going to punch you in the face and you're going to leave. And I'm going to do this thing with or without you, right? And so I'm telling you guys, I have these movies like always playing in my head. I'm always like thinking of like ways on how to get out of my own head, like bigger picture here, bigger picture. And the other thing that I always say is, if am I going to play small, and how am I going to feel a year from now if I don't do this thing today? And that's what really started to get me started on this journey, is I felt like I was living Groundhog's Day. Every single day I wake up and it was literally the same shit, different day, same shit, different day, same shit, different day. I wake up, hit snooze a million times, hate myself, go to work, hate myself more, put on a fake smile, pretend like I like everybody, go home, get pissed, get angry at the dogs, get angry at my husband, drink too much, go to bed, wake up, do it the next day. And it was like, this cannot be my freaking life. And so I started to do some work. I started to read some books. I started to journal. I started to meditate. I started to reach out and ask people for help, which in itself is super, super scary, especially if you are an independent woman. And I don't mean this in like, snap your fingers, I'm independent, whatever. But a lot of us have grown up that we can't ask for help and that you have to do all the things because that's what our parents did, right? Like you don't ask for help. You figure it out. And the truth is like, you don't have to figure it out on your own, right? Like, you don't have to. And I did that for so long. I felt really stupid for asking for help because I was like, Sausha, you're smart, you're independent, you're strong. Why can't you figure this out by yourself? And I would just kept hitting a brick wall. And so I started doing brainstorming sessions with people like, how can I overcome this? How can I think outside the box? And that's what really started getting the ball rolling. And people were like, well, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try this? And then that's, again, when that fear and those limiting beliefs set in. And you're like, oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I'm scared what people will think. And you have to ask yourself each time that you have a limiting belief come up, is it true? Is it ultimately true? Is there not enough money in this world? Is there not enough time in this world? Are you the only person that does this? Is it really that scary? And a lot of times the answer is no. But it takes a long time and a lot of practice to get to that place where you can see it from an outside perspective, right? Because really, abundance is all around. Like, there's enough money for everybody. There's enough jobs for everybody. There's enough... It's hard to explain this because my mind just automatically goes to like abundance now. And so I have to think like, what did Sausha say to herself 5 years ago? And it's hard for me to be that Sausha 5 years ago because looking back now, I have, sympathy and love for that Sausha, but I was angry. I was hurt. I didn't know where I wanted to go with my life. All I knew is that I couldn't keep doing this day in and day out. And, everything looked like I had shit together on the outside, but on the inside, I was just like dying. I was withering away. I just was not living my life purpose. And I busied myself with work. I busied myself with really unhealthy habits, that I'm sure I've told you guys some of them, but I don't really care to repeat those things in my life. And so, but I have to put myself in that mindset because I know some of you are there right now. And it was really hard for me just to think like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, because I had such a wall built up that I would seriously just tell people to fuck off. I'm like, you don't know what it's like. Don't tell me to try this and this and this and this because I've tried everything. And I would come from such a place of anger, hurt, frustration that I wouldn't even let my guard down to let somebody give me a suggestion because I would just be pissed. I'd be like, who does that person think she is? Like, they don't run my life, da 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 da. And now I come from a place of love. And it's funny because when people give me suggestions and things like that now, I sit with them, I take them in, and I figure out if that's truly the direction I want to go or not. And a lot of times if I'm like, meh, I'm not feeling it, I just don't do it. But if I don't want to do it because I'm scared or because it's uncomfortable, then I know that that's exactly what I need to be doing. And the only way to build that inner confidence is to continue to do the self-love things that are very uncomfortable. And this can be eating healthy. This can be exercising every day. This can be telling yourself you love yourself in the mirror. This can be having those uncomfortable conversations with loved ones about how you can agree to disagree and still be family members, right? Like, you can still have a loving relationship and agree to disagree. And you don't have to entertain the arguments. I used to entertain arguments all the time. And what I mean by this is it's a trap, right? It's a trap. It's an energetic trap. When somebody starts to argue with you and you're just like, listen here, and you're like, da 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 da, and you spill all of your thoughts without really just listening, it starts that chain reaction where it's like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you just feel so drained. You felt like nobody was heard, and you just leave angry and pissed off. So I challenge you to just listen and say, I hear you. I don't necessarily agree, but I hear you. And thank you for sharing. And then just leave it at that, right? Like, you don't have to sit there and, energetically cut a hole in you and just let all of your good energy drain right there on the floor, because then I feel like the other person wins, right? So it's a game. Like, I got to protect my energy. And that's how I figure out who I have conversations with and who I open up to and things like that. Like, I feel like, are they vibing with me? Are they not vibing with me? Can I energetically open up to this person or not? And if I'm just not feeling it, like, the game is protect your energy, Sausha, protect your energy. And so I just come at it from a loving place. And I'm like, hey, I really appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your concern. I have to disagree with you, but I wish you all the best, right? Like, thank you. I really appreciate you, you feeling like you're doing what's best for me. But ultimately, I know what's best for me, and I'm just going to go for it. And so get out of your own head, guys. Get out of your own head. That's all I got to say. Like, the fear of judgment, like, you're going to be judged one way or another. Whether it's on your deathbed, whether it's by your grandma, whether it's by your, coworker down the hall. Like, the people who judge you in that sense are not doing what you're doing. So does their opinion really matter, right? Like, if you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to get a promotion at work, if you're trying to pay down debt, if you're trying to exercise and eat healthy, the people who are judging you are most likely not doing what you're trying to do, okay? So their opinion should not matter. It should not matter at all. So do not let it affect you, and ask them that. Be like, oh, if anybody ever really does come up to you and say this, which it doesn't happen a lot, guys. Like, when you go out there and do something, we have this fear of judgment from like everybody. And literally there's only like a handful of people that judge you. And so I just want you to challenge yourself and ask them. Be like, oh, well, are you exercising and eating healthy every day? Are you trying to pay down your debt? Are you trying to get a promotion at work? And if they say no, just be like, oh, okay, so why does your opinion matter here? Right? Because it doesn't. Ultimately, it doesn't. And it's your own limiting beliefs, your own fear that's getting in the way. Don't let other people project their fear onto you either. Okay? And that whole self-worth thing, I'm not kidding you. Every day, I am worthy. I am strong. I am brave. I love you, Sausha. Like, you can do incredible things. I am creative. And just keep doing it until you believe it, and treat yourself like you love yourself. Give yourself healthy foods. Exercise your body every day because you love it, not because you hate it, right? And just know that as long as your intention is to show up 100% and give give it your all, that is good enough, right? Like, not every day is rainbows and kitty cats. There's some days that just downright suck. But as long as you know that you are showing up and giving it your best, your absolute best that day, then that's all that matters. Like, there's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as perfection. I can't say it enough. But we always put those perfect expectations on ourselves. So, another way that I get out of my own head is I like to picture a younger version of me, or even like my daughter. Like, I'll look at my daughter and say, would I ever tell her that she sucked, that she wasn't good enough, that why didn't she try harder? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would never do that. I'd be like, honey, I love you no matter what. As long as you show up and do your best with your best intentions, that is all anybody ever asks, right? So treat yourself like a 5-year-old version of yourself. What would you say to that person? And I bet you'd be a hell of a lot kinder to yourself, okay? So these are just a few things that I do. We all have the fear of failure. We all have the fear of judgment. We all have the fear of not being good enough. And that's okay. You just have to take steps in the right direction to overcome that fear. Don't run and hide from it. Face it head on. And when you conquer that fear, that's when the real confidence comes. That's when the real self-love comes. That's when you can start radiating so much confidence and self-love that people are like, I want what she has. Teach me what you did to get to that, because I want to help my community. I want to help my family. I want to help myself. They start to dream bigger, think bigger, and that possibilities are everywhere. Opportunity is everywhere. And that's really when like the light bulb clicks, is when you start working on yourself so much that it shows to other people, right? So that's what I want to leave you with. Work on yourself so much that you don't even have to say anything. People are just like, holy smokes, where did you get that self-love? Where did you get that confidence? And then you can share with them like, hey, I did this, and this is how you can do it too, right? Just think of how amazing this world would be if everybody had this much self-love or that much confidence. Not that like I'm not perfect. Like, I still work on myself every single day because the negative thoughts still come up, right? It's a practice. It's not like you don't climb to the top of the mountain. You're like, yeah, I'm celebrating. I'm going to love myself forever. Like, it's a daily practice, right? Just like eating. If you don't eat every day, eventually you'll die. If you don't drink water every day, eventually you'll die. If you don't practice self-love every day, eventually you will die on the inside. Okay, so just make this a daily practice and just know that showing up as your best self, loving yourself, eventually you'll just start radiating that confidence where you're like, I can do anything. I don't care what anybody says. Okay. All right, ladies, go be a badass today. I'll catch you next time.